Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Amanda, and this is a vlog of my late autism and ADHD diagnosis. I'm pausing to remind you that I do very little editing because I want to show you what an unmasked autistic person would look like if you were trying to have a conversation with them. In this video in particular, I have a lot of wiggling and tugging at my clothes and fidgeting that I do, and I'm leaving it all in. And today I'm just down the rabbit hole of what is a highly sensitive person. And I'm going to be very clear. I am not an expert. I am not a psychologist, a psychiatrist. I am a late diagnosed autistic and ADHD person with a special interest in learning everything about how the brain works in a layman's kind of way, right? I've had a special interest in personal development and interpersonal communication since I was a teenager. And I come across this term, highly sensitive person, over and over in online communities surrounding autism. And it has just like lit me up and got me really confused. And when my brain gets latched onto a new topic, I want to chew it up and like learn it inside outside inside out, upside down, and like really understand it before spitting it out. And everything that I can learn and read about highly sensitive person is, to me, my early opinions, and this may change because I'm still researching it, is that it is rebranding of autism. Now let me explain. Everything that I have read about highly sensitive person are autistic traits. Now, I have come across a couple of people who say that maybe highly sensitive person is subclinical autism, but even that has me going, I'm not so sure, because autism is genetic, and you either are autistic or you are not autistic. So subclinical autism, I'm not sure I 100% buy into it, but I have heard people say that they exhibit a lot of autistic traits, but they didn't get a diagnosis and that they were subclinical. My wonder about that is, do they have a different neurodivergency that isn't autism? Are they just still highly masking so much that the clinicians did not pick up on it? There are a lot of clinicians, and I'm talking about psychologists and psychiatrists, that are able to diagnose. It is mind-boggling, but there are still diagnosing psychologists out there who are not up to date on current autism research. You can go into some psychologists that will not diagnose you with autism if you are married, if you can drive, and if you make any kind of eye contact at all. And I'm sorry, I can do all of those things. I am definitely autistic. So I can see that there would be people who would go into a office and then be told that they didn't meet the criteria for autism and that they're subclinical autism when they actually are, and they just went to a doctor that is not understanding, especially for if they are assigned female at birth. Women are still underdiagnosed, or BIPOC communities. These communities aren't getting autism diagnoses at the same rate as white males. So a couple other things that make me really highly suspicious of highly sensitive person is, one, there's just one doctor, which I'm wanting to do a tangent. I can understand that, even autism was one person who was like, we're going to name this thing autism. But anyway, I have high cognitive empathy. I'm always playing devil's advocate when I'm researching and doing things. So that's one ways that I research stuff is like I will come up with an argument and then I will meet myself with the counter argument. I'm so thirsty today. So I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but her name is Dr. Elaine Adon. And it was like the early 2000s, I think, where she came up with this term, highly sensitive person. And a couple of things that seem a little bit off about it is one, it is not a medical diagnosis. It is not recognized as something that you can officially be diagnosed with. It is not in the DSM-5. And yes, I understand new things take time to get into the DSM-5. I also have aphantasia and a memory disorder called severely deficient autobiographical memory. You know, those things aren't diagnosable yet because they're still in research phases. So again, playing devil's advocate, I get that. Sometimes things take time, but every single trait of highly sensitive person that I've read about can be answered by autism and or ADHD. A lot of them, again, autism and ADHD often have a lot of overlapping traits, and sensory processing disorder, which again goes hand in hand with being autistic and ADHD. So I did a video I did a video about a month ago where I did one of the online autism tests. And so I'm not going to go through and do this entire one, but there's a highly sensitive person test, and I literally check every single box. I'm not going to do all of them, but I'll read off some of them. I'm easily overwhelmed by strong sensory input. Duh, yes, definitely. If y'all are catching an attitude, it's because I have a lot of strong feelings about this. I'm going to get to that at the end of the video. I seem to be aware of subtleties in my environment. Like I'm aware of like that clock ticking. Like I really need to get a new clock. That clock is driving me crazy. I need to get one that doesn't tick. But yes, I'm always aware of like random stuff in my environment. Other people's moods affect me. I find myself needing to be withdrawn during busy days. I like to go into dark rooms or places where I can have relief from stimulation. I am overwhelmed by light, strong smells, coarse fabrics, and sirens. Like, there was one, the caffeine one. I don't know if I am sensitive to caffeine. I don't think so. But that's also really common for ADHD people to not be. And then there was another one. I have a rich, complex inner life. That one, I don't exactly understand what it means. Like if it's talking about like, do you daydream a lot? Maybe that's what that's referring to. It might be saying like, do you daydream a lot? Like if it's referring to that, because of my aphantasia, I don't really daydream a lot. I will, but I don't get lost in like my headspace, I guess, if that's what that's even talking to about. But again, this long list of things, I could literally check off every single box except for, the caffeine one and the rich inner world, which I have a lot of thoughts. I just don't get lost in daydreams. But it didn't say daydream, so I don't know what that means. Anyway, my biggest thing about the reason why I'm upset about this highly sensitive person is because I feel like they are trying to rebrand autism to separate autistic people from the low support needs and high support needs. I feel like this highly sensitive person thing comes from a very ableist point of view. And in 2013, they removed Asperger's from the DSM-5. Hans Asperger's was tied to being a Nazi. He basically was like, these are the good autistic people. We need to save them. These autistic people are trash, and let's send them to the gas chambers. And he literally sent autistic children to the gas chambers during World War II. And so in 2013, they removed the term Asperger's. They put autism all under one diagnostic term. We're all autistic. They stopped using high functioning and low functioning autism, maybe even before 2013. I'm not sure when, off the top of my head, when those went out. Because functioning labels are ableist and very harmful. And I have another video on that, so I'm not going to repeat that. So we say level 1, 2, and 3, and that depends on your support needs. And again, for me, we are all autistic. Like, no matter what level of autism you are, you're part of my community. Whether you're level 1, 2, or 3, you belong in my community. We do need the support levels for support, like literally support, like differentiation for medical needs. I don't love the support levels. I don't think it is the ultimate solution because, like, for me, I'm a level 1 autistic, which says low support needs, not no support needs, which is a whole nother bone to pick because I do have support needs. There's no support out there for adults with level 1 autism, mostly in America, at least. I do have support needs, but they are considered low. But I feel autism is so dynamic. There are days where I'm fine. I can do most everything I need to do without any support. Then there's other days where I am in burnout, I am overwhelmed, I am struggling, and I need a lot of support. So it's really, I feel like a lot of autistic people can kind of move through the support levels. No, I don't think I'm ever like a level 3, but there are definitely days where it's like I need to be completely in a dark room and like no stimulation, and no, I cannot go to the grocery store. No, I cannot do these things. So I feel like highly sensitive person, when Asperger's got taken out, like, okay, that's no longer a term that we can use. Plus, it was still associated with autism. Like, people literally say it's the good autism, which makes me so angry because there's no good, no bad. Like, you're just autistic or you're not. But, and that's, I said I wasn't going to talk about the functioning labels, but that's why functioning labels are harmful. They're very much tied to capitalism. So if you're considered a high functioning autistic person, that means, oh, yay, a capitalistic society can still get you to work and do things. And if you are I can't talk today, low functioning autistic, that means, well, you know what? Whatever, you're a throwaway, we can't handle you, you're a drain on our society. And that is so ableist, it blows my mind, because no matter who you are, you bring value and worth to our community. So that's why functioning labels need to go away, because whether you need more support or less support does not equate to your value and worthiness of being a human being. And I feel like people who are clinging to the highly sensitive person want to be separate from autistic people, because autism has such a horrible stigma in our culture still. So these people don't want to be called autistic at any level. They're like, oh, I'm just highly sensitive. Now, there's a caveat. There are people who get told this by doctors and they don't know anything about autism. There's a lot of people that I've talked to on message boards that said that they were told they were a highly sensitive person, then they fell down research rabbit holes and later got diagnosed as autistic, which again proves my point. So if you're watching this video and you got diagnosed, which is not a real diagnosis, it's not an actual medical diagnosis, but if a doctor said you might be a highly sensitive person, and you've never even heard about how it relates to autism and you're shocked to hear this, I'm not calling you out. There's so much misinformation and uneducation around autism. So take this video as a chance to like check out other videos on my channel and check out other content creators who are making autistic videos and learn about autism, because there's a very good chance that you are autistic, possibly ADHD, and not just HSP, highly sensitive person. The other benefit to this is that autism is a recognized disability because it is disabling to be so sensitive to your environment, which is what they're talking about with highly sensitive person. It literally is disabling. And if you are disabled, then you should be protected by the disability term. I'm very passionate about this, as y'all might be able to tell. Although you might not be able to, because another thing about autism is that we often have a flat affect. So I'm feeling very, very riled up inside. My face may or may not show it. I'm not sure how much is coming across my facial expressions right now, but I'm like really riled up about this. And the last thing I think I want to say about this is that what I read was that Dr. Aaron came up with highly sensitive person because her nephew, and she was trying to find a diagnosis to describe what was going on with her nephew. And so she's like, there's nothing out there to fit his criteria. He is these things. And she created highly sensitive person. Later, her nephew got diagnosed with autism. So it was like she was trying to do anything to, again, not give him the autism label, because being autistic is so stigmatized. And we need to remove the stigma, because there's nothing wrong with being autistic. I love my autistic brain. Yes, it's disabling, but there's nothing wrong with being disabled too. Disabled people are valid humans, and we deserve to be here and take up space and contribute in beautiful ways. It's getting really dark in here. Hold on. Okay, so before I end this video, I just want to again remind people that I am still in the rabbit hole of research. So I'm very interested to see what the comments say. Please stay respectful. I'm not trying to bash anyone who says that they are highly sensitive and they're not autistic. I am trying to understand why you think, what differentiates you from autism. Because so far, every time I've asked that question, the people who have replied with an autistic trait. They're like, oh, but, I'm everything of this except the social differences. And so that may be it. Maybe you have all this processing stuff and no social differences. My wonder, though, is how much of that is masking. Because before I was diagnosed with autism, I masked my eye contact really well. And second, which is, one of the social differences that they talk about with autism. And second, I've always had a lot of friends. I've always struggled with friendships, but I know that other people have struggled with friendships too. I struggled in an autistic way, but I didn't know it. I did not know that I was masking my autism. I didn't learn about masking until I started researching about autism. And then I'm like, oh, I was masking. And I was like the kind of person, I would go to parties, I'd go out to different restaurants, I would, go meet people and do things all the time, but it was all masking. It wasn't innately like who I was, and it contributed to my burnout because I was having to push through so much. And every time I do that, I'd come home and crash, and I never put it together because, again, I didn't have the language back then. So yeah, I had someone say that they couldn't be autistic because they were very social. Well, again, I had before my diagnosis, and even now, I have a lot of friends. I'm married. I have a rich social life. Just because you're autistic doesn't mean that you can't be social. It just means that you struggle with social cues. So unless this person's saying that they don't struggle with social cues at all, then I'm still not feeling it. Dang it. Okay, so I know I said the last thing, but here's another thing I have to add to this. When you go to her website, highlysensitiveperson.com, hsperson.com, I mean, there's a fact section. And when you click on the fact section, when you scroll down, it says how does sensitivity differ from autistic spectrum disorders, and then Asperger's syndrome in parentheses. One thing, anybody who's using Asperger's on a professional website is already a red flag, because again, that has been taken out 11 years ago. Like, come on, let's get on to it. It says, autism diagnoses can be complex and dynamic. This area is not Dr. Elaine Aron's specialty, and she does not keep up on current research. So on her own website, she's like, oh, we're not going to look at autism because no. So anyway, I feel like highly sensitive person is trying to rebrand autism to be acceptable, because autism still holds stigma that we need to get rid of. Until the next video, bye guys.